my name is Alison Johnstone, as Fiona said. So I came to the EEC, must have been about a year and a half ago, maybe more. I was an employee and I work and collaborate with a lot of people that are members of the EEC, and somebody said, why don't you come to a networking event? And it was amazing, and everyone in this group is just so supportive, lots and lots of cheerleaders and saying, if you hate your job, why don't you go freelance? So really gave me the courage and support and enthusiasm, and I did it. So at the end of 2019 I became a freelance or consultant researcher. So my day job is working with larger research agencies, just to kind of as a like a research temp. So I fill in when they've got gaps in capacity or skills or something. So, but since then, I've been trying to think of a way to pay back that support to the SME community as a whole, not just the EEC, and make market research skills and knowledge and all of that stuff just available to small businesses that really need market research, because as we'll go on to talk about, it's pretty vital really for the success of a business. But obviously you guys don't really have that kind of support, so I started a Facebook group to kind of spread the knowledge, and I've also been working on some offline resources. Going to have a big, probably not a big launch actually, but anyway, I'll come back to that later. So to start with, who am I and why should you listen to me? So my name is Alison Johnstone. I am an independent market researcher, as I said. So I've been certified by the MRS, which is the Market Research Society. That's the official industry body. I'm also registered with the Independent Consultants Group, and I'm the owner, yay, of MRX On Demand, as mentioned. That's my consultant brand. I have worked in research for 20 years now. I started off working at the BBC and UK TV and media planning, and moved into audience and consumer research for the BBC, which brought me up to Scotland. And then from there, I worked in audience development for performance venues in Glasgow mainly, but also all around Scotland. Then I moved into a customer insight department, client side, so for the student loans company. Sorry, but that was great fun. Did a lot of UX research, customer surveys, and things like that. And then the last 5 years before I became a contractor, I worked for a market research full service agency. Lots of different sectors, lots of different clients. Did all sorts of methods of research. So I've been doing this for a while, and I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it from the small side. I've seen it from the absolutely enormous side. So today, I was going to take you through the 5 W's and the H, which I think has now been tacked onto this 5-point idea. So who does research? What is research? When to do research? Why do research? Where to do research? And then ultimately, how to do research. Won't go into that too much today because it is just a 15-minute spot. Okay, so let's start with, what is market research? So market research helps you identify and understand your target market. I mean, your competitive advantage really depends on how well you understand your industry, your sector, your consumers, and how well you know your competitors. So there are kind of 3 prongs to always remember. I think you can, having good market knowledge of your industry, your competitors, and your customers. So knowing about your industry, it's more than just, what are your competitors, but you can look at things like, what are the legal requirements, what are the economic influences on your industry, or the political influences, or the environmental effects that or seasonal impacts on how your industry fluctuates. Is there changes in technology? You can also find out about the demographics of your industry, so like how many small businesses in your area. All sorts of stuff is available. You can look at market trends that would give you an idea of best practices, regulations, certificates, and then also there's things like products and services that are already out there, the pricing, suppliers, distribution. I think that's something that should really fall into research, is looking at your suppliers and distribution and how they price as well, because I imagine for certain services that really has an influence on the success of your business. competitors or competition, it's doing research on them will give you an idea of the strengths that they have, the weaknesses that they have as well, so the gaps that you can fill, and any kind of challenges around that. So you can also look at what competitor products are out there or competitor services, just to see how you fit. And with the customers, market research will give you a little bit more than just their demographics in terms of like their gender and their age. It can also tell you things like what is their buying decision processes, what are their attitudes towards certain things, what are their perceptions of various brands, or and where do you sit, or where they think that you sit. The idea really is to find this strategic sweet spot, as seen on the circles here. So you've got your capabilities, and then looking at your competitors, you'll see where that overlaps. Then you've got your customer needs, and you can see where that overlaps. So you're looking for that little blue segment there that's not met by your competitors, your customer needs it, and you can deliver it. So why do market research? Really, it helps you make business decisions based on objective information and not just what people think might be the case, or friends and family can be very encouraging, but they might not have the broader view of what's going on. It'll help you to mitigate risks and identify them and really kind of prepare yourself for what would happen if it happened to you, and setting realistic goals. So if you know what the industry generally achieves, then they'll give you an idea, a kind of baseline of how you're doing, and what to aim for. On top of that, considering that everyone here today is already, I'm assuming, in an established kind of existing business, ongoing market research as well helps you to demonstrate your capability, your commitment, and your expertise to everyone around you, to your customers, and also to your business associates. What's happened here? So looking at this is the Harvard Business Review, 5 stages of small business growth. So they identified 5 stages of business growth. They forgot startup, when research is at its most important stage, when you think you should be determining if there's a need for your product or service, who's going to buy it, and what competitors are already delivering in your industry. But I'm going to assume that you're all past that setup stage, and you're probably fall within one of these 5. So you've got existing business, which is the focus is getting customers and delivering the product or service that you've been contracted for. Once you've got that in the bag, it moves on to survival. The business is a workable entity with enough customers and satisfies them sufficiently with its products or services to keep them. The focus now, is more from just mere existing to the relationship between your revenues and your expenses. Success is, the decision is now whether to exploit accomplishments and expand, or keep stable and profitable. Takeoff focus is on how to grow rapidly and how to finance that growth. And then maturity at the end there is really when it's time to consolidate and control your financial gains and retain the advantages really of being a small business. So through all of those stages, you can see you can do research at all of these stages. So in terms of when, it's not just a startup thing. So if you're an existing company, what are the market trends? Who is your ideal client, and what your competitors are doing? Just so you can really get a foothold. When you're in a kind of survival stage, you've got customers, but what could you be doing better? How is the market changing? How are customer needs changing? Last year, customer needs, views, perceptions, ideas, everything is just changing rapidly. And even when you get to the more successful stages of a small business, you still need to know, is your industry expanding, contracting? Are there gaps that you could fill? Where are competitors creeping up to kind of nudge into your space? And then takeoff and maturity, it's really, keeping on top of how customer needs are changing, how competitors are changing, and the state of the industry, just to retain that kind of standing in your industry. So where can you do research? Essentially anywhere. The internet is brilliant. So you can do research online and you can do research offline. So online, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. There's web-based research is basically anything that's online. So you've got obviously search engines. Everything is pretty much published on the internet these days. And you've also got the joy that is social media. You can also do online direct messaging, whether that's through emails, SMS, or another kind of messaging service like WhatsApp. You can use your CRM database if you have one. You can also buy lists. I know people say, oh, GDPR, you can't do that, but you can buy lists of contacts, or rent them, I should say. You don't buy them, you don't get to keep them, but you can use them for a cost. And of course, there's networking follow-ups as well, another way of direct messaging. Online, like I say, there's governing bodies, industry organizations you can look up, trade groups. There's also the Chamber of Commerce, industry and trade associations. You've got special interest groups and forums online, Facebook, all over the place. You can also get hold of census data and all public data, so through the ONS. There's news and press releases, Google reviews, social media monitoring, which is the hashtags and likes and follows and click-throughs and things like that. Then there's social networks like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram that have got a wealth of information about your industry, your competitors, your customers. Consumer groups, did I say that already? Blogs, Facebook groups, annual reports tend to be published online these days, and obviously webinars. So there's information all over the place. Offline generally means face-to-face, telephone, or through, through snail mail. What do they call it? Snail mail. So face-to-face could be in someone's home or on the street. You could do it at a venue like a trade show, at a networking event, conferences. So there are plenty of places that you can get information or data that will help you develop your business. Now, brace yourselves. Whoa. There are lots of analytical tools you can use as well. So this might look really scary, but essentially look at all those tools that are out there that you can use. That one you probably know, SurveyMonkey. And that's just, what does that say? Marketing automation. Oh, no, sorry, that's MailChimp. Where's SurveyMonkey gone? There he is. So that's voice of the customer. But there's all of these other ones, social media listening, call tracking, e-commerce management, keyword analysis, are all kind of Google Analytics. So you've got digital analytics is where you can get information about your own business. Sales analytics, social media is another tool that's just got so much capacity. Customer relationship management tools, marketing tools, voice of the customer tools, like I say, the kind of do-it-yourself surveys, and A/B testing is another tool that's available to small businesses. I'll come on to a bit more about what those mean. So who to research? So again, thinking of those three prongs of industry, competitors, customers. In your industry, there are lots of people that you can get data about to help the development of your business. You can speak to, obviously, customers. Sorry, we'll get to that, customers. In your industry, there's other employers, colleagues, the management. There's no shame at all in speaking to your competitors, but so there's suppliers and distributors. Speak to them directly, get the lowdown on their opinions and what information they're willing to share. You can speak to industry experts and journalists. So maybe if you find an article online that's really hit the spot with what you're trying to find out, give the journalist a call or drop them an email, try and contact them to get a conversation. There's academics and authors. Again, there's lots of people out there to talk to that can give you information or data, as researchers, I guess, tend to say. And like I say, yes, so competitors, there's no shame at all in speaking to other business owners. Most people love to talk, and if you're asking for advice, they'll tell you. sales and marketing teams as well, and maybe ex-employees if you wanted to get a real kind of lowdown on what your competitors are doing or not doing well. And then, of course, customers. So the idea is really as well to think broad. When I say competitors, you've obviously got your head-to-head competitors, you've got your first tier and your second tier. So I was trying to think of an example that would really help. So the example that people usually use is Burger King, but nobody here, I don't think, owns a burger shop. So I am going to try and illustrate this with coaching. I think there's a lot of life coaches out there, or business coaches, or just coaches in all those sort of forms. So if you think about your head-to-head competitors, there's obviously other coaches, but also if you think about therapists, some people choose a therapist over maybe going to a life coach. So have a look at the literal kind of head-to-head, competitors, what you're doing. If you then think about the first tier competitors, they're kind of remote coaching programs or membership programs. So it's where you don't actually have like maybe a personal coach, but the choice might be to use an app. So the top 5 apps I found were Remente, I don't know if I said that right, Happify, Allo Bud, Path Source, Calm. So obviously those are they are competitors for your service, because someone might choose to go with a remote coaching program rather than a direct coaching service. Then a kind of second tier, if you really want to think really broad, it's like, well, if I'm not going to use an interactive app or a remote coach, I could get some books. So I Googled top 5 coaching or life coaching books, and I got The Gifts of Imperfection, Let Go of Who You Think You're Supposed to Be and Embrace Who You Are, Thinking Fast and Slow, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, Grit, The Power and Passion of Perseverance, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So you can see there's lots of different ways. If I was looking for some help in my life with a kind of a coaching angle, my first port of call might not be to get a face-to-face coach. So those are the kind of tiers of competitors that you really need to consider, how you're going to tackle that with your marketing and your pitch and your promotions and everything. Okay, so how to do research. There are lots of different research approaches. So to go through these a little bit more in depth. So we've got awareness, attitude, and usage. So that is looking at how many people are aware of your service, aware of other people's similar services, just to get an idea of where you fit, how top of mind you are. Then the usage, obviously, if anyone's actually used your service or product, and others, so then you can kind of see where you sit in that part of the marketplace. And awareness, attitude is more about like perception. So what do they think? Particularly this, when you think about beyond your customer base and think about the kind of the broader consumers, your target audience, or maybe even your ideal clients. What do they think you do? Are there areas that you could that you really need to address to make them understand your services better, and then make them more likely to come to you? Campaign development and evaluation is another form of research. So you can imagine what that is. You've got an email campaign maybe, or perhaps even a paid for advertising campaign. You want to develop that and test it out to make sure it does what you need it to do. And then you can evaluate it to see if it was a success or not. All that falls under the umbrella of research. Brand tracking is a bit more corporate. So I won't, this is like ongoing tracking of data. So, and that's probably a little bit beyond small businesses. So I'll leave that just now. But pricing, obviously, kind of says what it does what it says on the tin. You can research different pricing structures, and it also covers things like purchase intent. How likely people are to buy something or consider something. You can test pricing. Price sensitivity modeling is what we call it, but you can say, what's too much, what's not enough, what's about right, and you can work out your ideal price points. Competitor analysis, talked about that a lot already. New product development, so if you've got a new service or a new product, test it with your customers, test it with consumers, so people that may not yet be your customers. It all helps kind of test and refine before you actually launch, and you've got a really firm understanding of what's working, what's attractive, what will get people kind of really taking interest, all to help with your marketing of that product or service. And then customer satisfaction is something that all businesses should really be doing, and I'm sure you do in some form or another, whether that's like through some automated thing like Trustpilot, or it's just saying, asking people after they've come to the end of your service, or they've bought something, what did you think? What could I do better? How satisfied are you? All those kind of things. So just to break it down a bit more, so there are kind of, I call it desk research. It's kind of called secondary research, really, which means it's information that's already available out there for you to get. So like I said, there's the internet and good old, hey, just Google it. Then there are databases that you can use. I mentioned the ONS. Gov.uk is also another good place to just get a wealth of publicly available information about business, about people, about areas, locations. You can also get market reports online from companies like Mintel and Which. Some of them are free. Some of the kind of more detailed ones you do have to pay a little bit for. Then the kind of the primary data, as they call it, so that's not data that's already available to you, it's data that you create and collect yourself. So there's qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative being the kind of the how and the why and the when, whereas quantitative is more like how many and what. So it's kind of the qualitative is more depth, quantitative is more about getting the broad overview. So if you think about the ways that you can get kind of qualitative information about your industry, your customers, and your competitors, observational research. So that could be ethnographic research, semiotics, which again they sound a bit scientific, but that's basically watching. So, ethnographic mystery shopping is a sort of form of ethnographic, but you can just, if you've got a bricks and mortar idea, there's nothing wrong with just hanging around competitors' shops, seeing who comes in, what are the customers like, what is that shop selling, how do they set up their shop, how do people move around the shop, did they find what they were looking for? Again, don't be shy to talk to people about it either. Semiotics is more about branding, so it's the interpretation of signs. So if you think about logos like Nike and McDonald's, those are signs. You can recognize those logos a mile away, but it's how people interpret things like font. So the classic, Comic Sans versus Helvetica. What does that say about your product? Colors. So some colors are seen to be convey kind of intelligence, or so green is often used for medical stuff because green is felt to be quite clean and kind of antiseptic, which is great if you're doing a medical thing, but maybe it's not so great if you're doing something that's supposed to be warm and cuddly. And yes, mystery shopping, that's great. So yeah, basically that's pretending to be a customer. Have a target in that, what you want to find out. You can buy, it's not entirely free. You can, you might have to buy something, but you could always refund it. But yeah, go through the journey as a customer online or in person and ask lots of questions along the way, and you'll find out, that's how you identify the gaps, the weaknesses, but also the strengths and maybe approaches that you've never considered before. In-depth interviews is basically conversations with people, and groups is group discussions. Focus groups is probably what jumps to mind, but yeah, a group of people talking about stuff, that's really interesting in that you get to see how the group bounces off each other, and particularly if you're thinking about awareness of a product or what people think about a service, to see how that kind of conversation grows in a group That's can give you a whole lot of insight. Quantitative, like I said, that's more of the big numbers, and surveys. Surveys is probably really the last approach you should really consider, because you do need access to a lot of people to get enough response. In market research industry, we expect out of 10 people that are invited to take part in an online questionnaire, only one will do so. So if you want 100 responses, you need to have at least 1,000 people that you have available to ask, which is why I think sticking surveys, SurveyMonkey on Facebook probably won't get you very good quality results, and probably not the volume of information you need either. So the term there that I've got, computer assisted interviewing, is just a fancy word for online questionnaires and surveys. But the point is here that you can do questionnaires via the telephone and in person, as well as online. So those are other ways to consider it if you need to reach people. Maybe a telephone interview would be much better. Then there's polls. You can do polls on LinkedIn. You can do polls on Facebook. That's a great way just to throw out a single question with a range of answers and see what sticks. Again, it's not so much what you ask, it's who you ask. So I recently saw on a Facebook group that I'm a member of, somebody putting out a kind of poll or a questionnaire about 16 to 25-year-olds who have experienced homelessness, and they posted it in an SME startup business group. I thought, you're not going to find many under 25s that's experienced homelessness in this group. So it's not so much what you're asking, it's where you are asking it. So it's back to that knowing your customer and knowing where they hang out. And then there's also the feedback tools. So these are like the ongoing things. If you've got a website, sometimes they have those little buttons at the bottom saying, do you want to give some feedback? And it's just a quick rating out of 5. I'm not sure how much those are to install on a website, but you could put those, you could get information back from those. Trustpilot, I imagine, is not free at all, but another way of getting quantifying customer feedback. And then there's also like I said, follow-up emails if someone's bought something, or you can make a quick kind of poll or one question questionnaire, stick it on an email, and see if people can give you some feedback. And maybe also it's an opportunity then to get a testimonial. Phew. So that was quite quick, but that's the 5 W's and the how of research. So I hope that was useful and not too jargony. What I've got here. So as I said, I think I was saying to someone at the tables before, I've bashed around ideas of how to kind of pass on my experience and skills of how to do research for small businesses. And I've got a Facebook group that you are welcome to join. I wonder if this works. No. How to do research Facebook group. I think these slides are actually going to be circulated afterwards, so hopefully these in a PDF format, these will work. But there's so I've got a Facebook group that you can join. Every day there's a little nugget of information on there, which are building into guides. So that's the idea, is to help giving you a bit of kind of understanding of ways, the lingo, and some demonstrations as well. I've had some really interesting live chats with a couple of people that I've worked with, and how the approach that I helped them formulate got really good results back from doing their own research. The idea really is to give you kind of the skills and signposts and advice and tips that you can do it well, and get the information back that you really need. So to that end as well, I also have 5 ways of doing research. Lots of people say, oh, I'm just stuck, I just don't know where to start. So it's an 18-page download of the 5 ways that I've briefly talked about today. And it's to help you just think about how you can go about doing that, and how you can do it yourself, mostly for free, and how you can do it in a way that will get you good results. And ultimately, I'm working on how to do research website, online learning portal, where there will be videos, downloads, checklists, like workbook type things, or what else is going to be on there? Templates, and all sorts of offline resources that you can download and use at your leisure. So that's me, and that's what I came here today to kind of start spreading the word. So do give it a go. I think afterwards, actually, in this, I'll put all those details in the chat, and then you can have a click around and see what you think. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera back on. And that's me. So, Fiona, over.